From the KUAM Podcast Network, this is Rlene Live, with conversation on island issues facing Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. Now, here's Rlene.
Soliwoda?
That's me.
Hapaday, this is Arlene Steffy.
Yes, hapaday to you too.
Okay, so let's begin. Today is the 17th of April 2018 here on Guam, and that would be the 16th for you in Maryland. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, Lee, I am aware of your story through your daughter, Mira, and she and I were speaking one day about you and some of the moments that she remembers so proudly, and she was mentioning a cultural activity that you participated in with the Belembaotuyan. And so I was very intrigued by her comment. I said, you know what, I need to interview him, because that's when I found out that you were also a professor at the University of Guam. And of course, I'm also interested in how you got to Guam and any of your earlier developments in your life. So let's begin.
Okay, my name is Lee C. Soliwoda, and my parents were Doris and Chet Soliwoda, and I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. And, lived there most of my early life. I did the usual things growing up. I was able to really had a great experience, because growing up, my parents told me that I was always drawing on things, probably things I shouldn't have been drawing on. And I always remember at Christmas time, they always gave me papers and pens and pencils, and so that's really, I think that was the first inkling that I had that I really wanted to do this. And after I finished high school, I was able to get accepted to the Cleveland Institute of Art. I thought maybe I needed some direction and some focus so that I could improve my skills. So I was there for 2 years. But it just wasn't for me, and so I decided to part ways and thought to myself, well, what's next for me?
Mm-hmm. Give me a minute here. When you say that your parents from a very young age encouraged your drawing, could you tell us what it's like to have that natural gift to be able to draw, and how is it that you as an artist view the world, Lee?
Well, for me, and maybe it's this way for most people that have that talent or that gift. I call it a gift.
It is a gift.
And I never had, it was never a problem for me to draw something. I could look at an apple, I could look at a tin can, and I was able to draw that. And don't ask me how, but it sort of just comes out.
You see it in your head, and you know how to replicate it, huh?
Yeah, you visualize it, and sometimes you go the extra step, and you may add a few other things. So
dimension has always been something you see.
Yes, the visual acuity for me is, I see things that when I'm talking to people, sometimes they didn't see what I was seeing, or they were seeing things a little bit differently. I was looking at things maybe a little bit differently. So it's kind of hard to explain, but
when I see an apple, I see a circular fruit, and I see the natural indentations of where the stem comes out. How do you see an apple differently from what I just described?
Well, for me, I'll look at it and I'll see where the shadows are from the light source. It's sitting on a picnic table. There's textures there. I see the indentations and little notches and scratches in the apple, and it's just a different way of looking at things.
A lot more clear.
Actually, there was a little story here. When I was in second grade, there was a TV show. It was about opera. And so I was really excited about that, so much so that when I was in Holy Rosary School, Sister Veronica left the classroom, I stood on my desk and I started singing opera. And consequently, my musical career ended rather quickly when Sister Veronica came back in and said, "Get off that desk," So I guess I drifted more into art, I guess.
So you are a person who likes to express himself then?
I do, not overtly, but I think I like to get inside people's heads and kind of communicate with them, and I just enjoy hearing their stories, hearing what their life is like, and
which is what I do.
I think that, well, some people call that nosy, but I think that's okay too.
Well, if you're not interested in other people, then that's a pretty dull life, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's...
Yeah, that's pretty self-centered, really.
That's a good point.
I'd rather know about other people than spend time on me. I fascinate in the variety of differences and in the interest factors and in how, and a lot of the problem solving. I love listening to how people solve problems, how they get into them, and then how to solve problems. What is it that you do right now, Lee?
Well, right now, I'm working as a contractor with the diplomatic security for the State Department.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is we provide training to all the special agents that are responsible for guarding diplomats.
What sort of training do you provide for guards?
What we do is we provide classroom training, and we also provide hands-on training that deal with weapons handling, how to, driving, just different ways of being able to protect that individual or individuals that are going on different diplomatic missions.
Okay, so how is it that you teach them communication for these people who guard diplomats?
Our agents, our people come to us really, really skilled. They may come from previous military backgrounds or other law enforcement backgrounds, but they're very, very focused, and that's what we try to hone even more, because there's a cultural part of being an agent in a foreign country. So those are some of the things that we have to look at too, is just to get in and understand them, to understand some of the challenges they're going to have. So we have classes that deal with how to handle yourself in different situations. And also the agents go to language school for several months, almost a year. And then they go to that country and they're there for a while. And then they'll come back for retraining. So it's a cycle.
So they have to be immersed in the language of the area they're going to go?
Yes.
Oh, very interesting. And when you talk about a cultural adaptation, what sort of cultural awareness do you prepare them with?
I can't say too much of what we really do.
Let's use Guam, because you're familiar with Guam. If you're going to send a security agent to secure a diplomat that's coming to Guam, give us an example of some of the things that you would be making them aware of when they come to Guam, knowing the multicultural environment that they're going to be in.
Well, first of all, they would get some background about what the situation is, of course. There may be a time where they would go what we call in advance. And it's usually a team. It's not usually just one person, but two people. Sometimes it's three.
Okay.
But in the case of Guam, there would probably be contact with the local government officials there to to get an idea of what the environment's going to be like. Where are the venues going to take place? What kind of security is at the venues? What's the agenda? There's a lot of give and take back and forth.
Yes, I am familiar when a president travels, but not so much a diplomat. I've never had an experience dealing with a diplomat. I imagine that the security is just as important and attention is given to the safety of the diplomat.
That's very true, and good security is what you don't see.
That's right. And it's vital, not only for the diplomat, but for the local people I saw. For example, here on Guam and in Saipan, there really isn't a huge political divide. We were both English-speaking countries. One is a commonwealth, the other one is a territory.
Right.
And so we're not foreign in that regard. Even if there is some, resentment, and there are some activists that exist in both islands who are very vocal and very strong against the military movement. And it's their right. In the United States, you have the right to speak up, which is what makes the United States so different from other countries. But I don't think that it's a high level of security for any of these diplomats that come to Guam, or Saipan for that matter.
Yeah, like I said, depends on who they're going to be meeting with and
right.
And who they are. Yeah. If it's a cabinet member, well, they'll have Secret Service. If it's
right.
If it's another individual that's with the government, then they may have the diplomatic security. Yeah, it depends on the itinerary too. So if they stop for gas and go, then that's pretty much.
Yeah, most of them do stop for gas and go. To the resentment of many of the people of Guam, you can imagine, which confuses me sometimes because it's like, do you want to see him or do you not want to see him? Why are you upset that he didn't stop when you give him the impression that you don't like him, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
How did you manage to get involved in this kind of work from professorship? You have such a diverse background that it sounds almost like you're a restless soul.
No, well, I think because of my art background, and it enabled me to think creatively. I went to a great school in Los Angeles, and I learned how to plan and just take things, very, very systematically, and that's carried over in some of the things that I've been doing now. I've been doing a lot of. I had my own business for a while, and basically I was doing a lot of work for different companies and even the government. And my degree from San Diego State, I went to San Diego State, got a master's degree in instructional design, which is a systematic way of designing training programs and presentations and so on. So it's just part of the art kind of helped me out because we do pamphlets, we do brochures, we do interactive video, we do all kinds of things to get the message across the best way we can. My art background played a big part in my career.
Are you able to say what company you work for?
Yes, the contracting company is called All Native Group, ANG, and they're a company in Nebraska, and it's a American Indian-owned company. Okay. Are you American Indian in any way? No, I'm Polish. You're Polish, okay. And you reside. Yeah. You mentioned something earlier. You said you were born in Pennsylvania. Yes, it was Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie. How close is that to Lancaster? It's quite a distance. Erie is located in the northwestern part of the state. It's way up there, and it's right on the edge where Lake Erie is. Oh, okay, so, going to Lancaster, that's probably a little drive. Yeah. My husband was born in Philadelphia. Oh, wow, okay. Yeah. I find it really interesting that many of the people that I've interviewed over the years are born in that state. Is that right? Well, it was one of the early states, One of the 13, right? The 13 colonies? Yeah, eventually, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just find it very interesting that a lot of people have their origin in that state.
Yeah, that, and I think Maryland, Virginia, this whole area on the East Coast is pretty settled. I mean, we've been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is Rlene Live, and we've got more coming up in just a moment. From broadcast sales to marketing and public relations, from newspaper columnist to talk show host. Sound challenging enough for you? Not for Rlene Live, who went on to be president of an advertising and marketing agency, then a newspaper managing editor and an investigative reporter, all in just 20 years. Now she's back as an ethnographer and oral historian, and you can now find Rlene Live Monday mornings on the KUAM Podcast Network. Tune in and learn the oral histories of Tautautano, the people of the Mariana Islands, and the Palauan and Refalawish people of Micronesia. She's personal, she's local, straight up, and so much more. She's Rlene Live, now on the KUAM Podcast Network. Now, more Rlene Live on the KUAM Podcast Network.
Is San Diego State the school that you made reference to about being in a very good school?
Well, it is a good school, and the other one I went to, that was before I got to San Diego. That was in Los Angeles. That was the Art Center College of Design.
But that's the one that you said you went to because you thought you needed some formal training, but it wasn't for you?
No, the first one I went to was the Cleveland Institute of Art.
Oh, like Cleveland.
And I was there. It was good, but it wasn't as disciplined as I thought it would be. But when I got the information about Art Center, I was very excited because I liked the program. The programs were really, really focused, and at that time I corresponded by, we didn't have email, so everything was written down, and so I decided that I'd like to go out there, and I got my portfolio put together and sent it out, and I got a letter of acceptance, and I was very excited, and I also got a letter from the government that looked like a draft notice, and so I decided it was time for me to join the Naval Reserves.
Lee, why did you think when you graduated from high school that you needed formal training or more rigid learning for art?
Well, when I was in high school, I had a great art teacher, too. We had a great program. I went to a technical school that when you went to a technical school, you could take auto mechanics, you could take cosmetology, you could take a lot of hard skills kind of things. I took commercial art, and from commercial art, there are objectives, and there's different kinds of elements that make you get organized, and I thought that was really good, and the program there was really good. But I also wanted to get some other experiences beyond just getting my high school diploma and getting my certificate in commercial art. I mean, there's more to it than that.
Sure.
So I decided Cleveland was close by. It wasn't that far, and they had a very good reputation, and it is a good school. I mean, I felt that it just wasn't for me. It was one of those things, well, I don't know, I'm just not getting, I mean, I kind of know how to do some of this stuff already, and I just want some other experience. And I met somebody at Cleveland Institute of Art who went to Art Center, but they had to leave because the family was moving back to the East Coast. And this person talked really highly of it, and talked about the programs, and really learned how to draw and really learned how to hone the skills that are important and make them better. That's what I thought I needed, and it was what I needed because it was a great school, and I just really enjoyed it.
If as an artist you're looking at your future, why commercial art, Lee?
Well, commercial art is based on advertising concepts. It's based on illustration. It's based on photography in a sense. Mm-hmm. So those are things that you get paid for.
Yes.
And but when you go out into the world and you say, I'm a fine artist, not fine, not fine in the sense of, being really a nice person.
Yes.
But a fine artist is a person that develops their work. They come up with some ideas. They try to get into the gallery scene, and it can be quite lucrative. But it can also take a long time to get accepted.
It's a feast or famine method, right?
It can be, yeah. I was lucky though, because when I was, well, let me go back a little bit. After I graduated from Art Center, I got my BFA in art. But at the same time, that's when I had to, do my Naval Reserve duty, and so I had to do that 2 years. Now I'm in Long Beach, waiting to get my orders, and it says, well, you're going to Guam. And I said, okay. So I went to the library and I looked at a map to see where Guam was. I mean, I kind of heard about it, but I wasn't really that familiar with it. So I said, well, okay. Then about a month later, I was in Guam, and it was 2:30 in the morning, and landed at the airport, and that was the darkest place I've ever seen. After being in L.A. all that time, L.A. never shuts down. It's
right.
24 hours a day. So
right. That impression in the past of being the darkest place on earth had a lot to do with the fact that it wasn't quite developed, and we didn't have a lot of street lights, and you landed at the old international airport, and it was very different at that time.
I remember getting into the Jeep because I got a ride to the Naval Communications Station. So it was dark all the way out there. The drawing was it was dark. But the next morning, the light was, to me, the most fantastic thing I've ever seen.
You mean the sun? You mean the daylight?
Yes, the daylight. It was like pristine. It was beautiful, and it just caught me. I don't know.
What was it that got you?
It was just the feeling. It was just the air, the light, just the colors. Remember, I came from L.A., so we had were those big tall palm trees.
Well, LA's pretty gray compared to Guam.
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed, and I really, I said, well, this is kind of nice,
Yeah. Did you draw in those early days here?
Yes.
What did you draw?
I did. As a matter of fact, when I was still in the Navy, I had an art show.
Oh.
And I had my first TV appearance because I was invited to talk about the art show. So I went to the TV station. I believe it's still KUAM, I would think. I don't know.
It was KUAM, but it was when it was in ORDOT.
Yeah. And I don't remember who the hostess was, but she was very, very, very good. She was asking me a lot of questions, and then, but I was on active duty, so I just had to play it down a little bit. But I did have the show. It was really great. A lot of people came, and I met a lot of people, and so yeah, I mean, it was kind of exciting. And while I was on Guam, that's when I got a letter from Art Center and said, we'd like you to think about participating in the master's program.
Oh, wonderful
And
invitation.
I said, sure. When I get stateside, I'll stop in. So in between me getting to Art Center, apparently they had sent a letter to my folks while I was en route. And so when I got the letter, I opened it up and it said that, you've been awarded a graduate fellowship.
Wow.
So I said, oh, that's pretty good. And, of course, my parents were very happy because they didn't have to pay for anything. but which they would have, by the way, but they didn't have to, and that made me feel good.
Yes, of course.
And that was a great experience, and that's where I started to get really interested in the paintings by Gauguin and some of the other early artists.
Oh.
The Impressionists were.
I was just going to ask you, who are some of the artists that have inspired you?
Yeah, there was a group of artists there in the expressionist movement in the 20s and 30s. Well, even before that, this group was a little bit before that. But it's called the Blue Rider Group, and their whole emphasis was on nature, the rhythms of nature, as they used to say. And I really was just really influenced by that group of artists.
What is the name of the group?
The Blue Rider Group.
I'm sorry, I can't make out the other word.
Oh, Rider, R-I-D-E-R, Blue Rider.
Rider.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they name themselves the Blue Rider?
Well, it was a German group, but they were a spin-off of the main expressionist movement at the time. And the German expression would have been Blau Rider.
Oh, okay.
So everybody, back here we always said, "Oh, Blue Rider." That's what it meant. Blau, blue.
Mm.
So.
But why Rider? That doesn't. It's not clicking for me.
One of the artists in that group, his name was Franz Marc, and Franz Marc loved horses.
I see.
And all of his work was a stylized, almost an abstract rendition of horses.
Hmm.
So, and then there was another artist that is still one that I really, really liked. His name was Vasily Kandinsky. He was a Russian artist, and I liked his whole style. It was abstract.
What is your style of art?
I would say it's kind of a neo-realism, but it's kind of abstract in a way.
Okay.
But when I was on my master's program, I was really very, very focused on nature, and then because I was in Guam when I got back and doing my master's work, Guam was a big influence on me. I did a lot of research on the islands and especially the mythologies and all the things that were part of those cultures.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to stop there, and I want to go back a little bit. Before that, when I was still in Guam, I was also doing research. I was a professor at the University of Guam, and I was talking to students, and then there was a grant. The university got a grant, and we developed a course called People in Their Society. It was for a lot of different students coming in from Palau and different places coming into Guam. When they got there, they were very different. They were very unusual, but they were very, very creative and expressive, and they talked about their mythologies and their rituals, and I'm going, wow, this is really kind of great stuff. And so then I really got excited about that emphasis that they had. And then I was able to start thinking about, I was reading the Guam Recorder, and I was reading some of these other things, and I said, well, wait a minute, I'm reading about this instrument, but I don't know where can I find this instrument. I mean, there was some articles about it, but then what happened was I decided there was what they call the National Endowment for the Humanities had a summer seminar for college teachers. So I wrote my proposal to them and said, I really want to explore some of the cultural things in Micronesia and specifically in Guam. And so I was awarded that grant to spend time at New York University. So when I got back, I kind of bumped into some people, and we were talking about this instrument and so on and so forth. And then that's how I got connected to the people that we got together as a group, and we actually went and produced this Belembaotuyan.
You made a Belembaotuyan?
Well, I can explain how we did it.
Don't go away. There's more coming up with Rlene Live on the KUAM Podcast Network.
Middle of the ocean, but this paradise is teeming with people with all sorts of amazing abilities.
Bonita Baby was nothing but hair accessories. I had some little barrettes that we were making and headbands, our little knit bow headbands, and that's all I started out with. And I decided shortly after, I had been sewing for a little while, that I was going to put it out there.
Whether it's artists who create visual masterpieces, creatives inspiring others, people who compose and perform moving pieces of music, athletes taking their game to the next level, or entrepreneurs coming up with innovative solutions, there are a ton of folks here doing incredible things with their gifts. And I want to introduce them to all of you.
Women, not just guys, women could come in and feel like they're there to train, they're going to be taken serious, they're not going to be hit on by dudes, They're going to have their own space. They're going to be respected as just another practitioner of this martial art.
I'm Jonagan Charfris, and I invite you to join me on the KUAM Podcast Network for Fistful of Talent, where I sit down with people discussing their visions and dreams and sharing the secrets of their success.
In the avenues of being in the creative life, and then what's the next thing?
Just subscribe to the KUAM Podcast Network on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcatcher platform, and prepare to be amazed. That's Fistful of Talent each and every Friday. Thanks for listening. And now, let me get you back to your show.
Now, back to the conversation with Rlene Live.
Wonderful. Before you do that, are you saying that you stepped out of Guam, went to New York, learned about the Belembaotuyan, and then came back and actually created one?
No.
Okay. What did going to New York have to do with anything?
It basically had to do with for the humanities grant that I got to study in New York on some of the traditional, I would say, dancing, storytelling, group performances, some of the things that we did in the people in their society grant that we got on Guam. So I said, then I saw that there were some musical things and so on and so forth, and then I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but then when I got back, that's when I began to get familiar with, well, there is this instrument here, and it seems kind of intriguing to me. And I didn't know much about it, but the more I looked, I started to get some indication that there was something there. And there was. And then I said, well, I think we should try to document this and find out who's doing this and get this down so it can be preserved and people can see this. So I'm going to speed ahead now. I finally got together with one of my students, and at the time her name was Carol Ibanez Diaz. So one thing led to another, and we said, okay, well, I think I can probably see if I can get a grant and get some help from the Insular Arts Council. And but we said we want to do this the right way. This I don't want this to be commercial. I don't want this to be any kind of money-making scam. So we got together, and we decided that first of all, we finally identified the two gentlemen who were playing the instrument, the Belembaotuyan. So it was Jesus Crisostomo and Manuel Quichocho.
Okay.
And Quichocho was from Jonia, I believe. Yeah, I think he was from Jonia. And he was an older gentleman at the time. And I think Crisostomo, he was from, let's see, I'm trying to think. Anyway, it'll come to me.
Was he from the South?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he probably around that area, yeah.
Okay. So you sought them out?
Yes, with the help of Carol, and we wanted to make sure that they would be comfortable. We didn't want them to be scripted.
Okay.
We wanted them to be themselves, and we got a project team together. We got Tom Unsog. He was a camera person at the TV station, so we had him to do the video. I had a video camera, and I could take stills as well. And then we also got a hold of this person. Her name was Anisha de la Cruz, and she was from Saipan, and she was fluent Chamorro. So we wanted these guys to talk in Chamorro, because obviously they would have felt more comfortable, and I think they really appreciated that. And it was the very first time that they had met. So all these years they're playing this, the instrument, but they never met. So they got together. So we're doing the project now, but prior to that, we had to come up with the script and come up with the proposal to get the grant. And so I was doing all that legwork because I was familiar with how the Insular Arts Council works. So I was the one that I said, well, let me do that. Let me do the project director work, and then I'll let you guys focus on how we can get this thing put together. So we got the project team together, and then we got the grant, which was great, and proceeded just to go take it one step at a time. And one of the things that was important when we did the video, there was 3 parts to the video. It was kind of a meet and greet where they met each other. They talked about their experiences with the Belembaotuyan, and it was quite nice. And then the second part was construction of the Belembaotuyan. They both built their own Belembaotuyan, and we documented that.
So they have their own, but they built another one for the project.
Yes.
Okay.
So we could show how it was done.
Okay.
And they both had their little style of doing it, but it was similar, but it was a little different. And they talked about the wood and the the wires that they used, and it was really quite interesting. And then the last part of the video was they played together. They actually sat down and they played together.
The music of the Belembaotuyan is a twangy sound, right? But there is rhythm. How do they make the rhythm?
With the little, they had this little stick, and what they would do is they would lift the strings, and then they would be tapping the strings with the little stick. It looked like a chopstick, and they just were, they just had a rhythm to it.
So were they making up the rhythm? Were they the ones making it, or was there already an established way to play it? Like you would a guitar. The Belembaotuyan has only one string, correct?
Correct. It's a one-stringed instrument.
Okay, so
when they were playing, when they played it, they would take their hand and they would lift the string. They would lift that one string up and down, and they would move their hands a little bit, and then they would use that small stick to get the different tones. Pretty interesting.
Now, would they move their hand like in a glide up and down the neck of the Belembaotuyan to achieve a different sound?
Yeah, it was very, very subtle, but yeah, they in the video you can see it.
Okay.
It's pretty good, and also that video is in the Micronesian Area Research Center.
We'll have to get it. I'm a research associate there.
Yes, I made it a point just before I left Guam. A dear friend of mine who no longer is around, Ed Gould.
Oh yeah.
Who I worked with at the university.
Yeah.
He actually delivered that for me.
Okay. Yeah, Ed has since passed away.
Yes, he has.
He and his wife both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I worked with him.
So what else happened in the video? What other requirements needed to meet the grant?
I had to put a proposal together with costing, and we had a schedule to meet. There was some pushback, but I think we made a good case for it. It was a good proposal. I mean, we won the proposal, and we were able to get these guys together, and it was really great. When they met, they talked about their experiences and their knowledge of how to make one of these things, and they both came to some agreements about the type of wood, and all this was being discussed in the video. And I got to give it to the project team. They Anisha Dela Cruz she asked the questions, and we didn't have any set questions. We didn't want to coach them or have them scripted in any way, as I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
So no prompting or direction on our part. We shot it as we did it. Uncontrolled documentary. Sometimes it's called ethnographic filmmaking.
Exactly.
But it was documentary style.
Yep.
They did it. They did all that they wanted to do. We just shot, and they were good. I mean, they talked about that. They were talking about getting banalo wood, and it was all interesting to me. I thought it was really great stuff.
Yeah.
But like I say, the project team, fantastic. Tom, the cameraman, shot. I also shot video, but I was more in the background. I wanted to keep a distance. I didn't want to, stand out or be in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there was no directing. We just said, hey, go for it. Let's get it done.
Exactly.
And then we met several times. We didn't do it all in one day. This was over a period of months. And so whenever they were free, we would set up an appointment. Carol would set up the appointment, and then we'd go out where they were. I think we went to Inarahan at one time, and we shot there.
Mm-hmm.
And just a funny story, though. The wives of one of the players, somehow she got wind that there were two girls on the team, on the project team, and I think she was not too happy that her husband was going out to play the instrument. So, but after a while, she knew that they weren't going out running around or something.
Oh, I see. She was concerned.
But just kind of a cute story.
Sure.
The conversation continues now on the KUAM Podcast Network with Rlene Live.
Buenas Zenhavade, I'm Lacey Martinez Francisco. If you're hungry or have a passion about everything food, then I've got just the show for you, with me. Each week I bring you Foodie Call, a show about all aspects of how we Guamanians enjoy our cuisine, preparing it, consuming it, sharing it, using it as social currency, and talking endlessly about it. We also profile people in our community who are masters of their crafts in working with food. Whether you eat with your eyes or can't wait to fill your stomach, or if you're a perfectionist about the process, you'll enjoy Foodie Call right here on the KUAM Podcast Network. So lock in our show by subscribing to our feed on SoundCloud, on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, or on your favorite podcatcher platform, and get our freshest episodes delivered right to your device when we're done cooking them. We'll see you then, and we'll make you a plate.
The conversation continues now on the KUAM Podcast Network with Rlene Live.
You said something, Lee, about pushback. What kind of pushback did you receive in this project?
I think because it was something, I don't want to put my finger on it too severely, but I think there was some disenchantment that I was the one doing it, but I really wasn't doing it. I was facilitating it to be done, because people can talk about it, but let's get something done.
Sure.
I can tell you how it happened. Prior to my coming to the university, or prior to my coming to Guam, there were some grants that were given out by the Insular Arts Council that were never completed. You know, the arts meaning a project, or, you know, some work of art or work of arts or things like that. I wasn't that familiar with what the Insular Arts did, but I did know that there was some disenchantment because of, you know, basically they got burned on some of the projects. So, and I can understand that they had they were very concerned, and I understood that. But I made it in our proposal. I said, no, this is going to be we're going to document. We're going to be using, you know, real people doing real things here, and we got the proposal, and they granted it to us, and it turned out. I was very happy with how it turned out.
Unfortunately, many of the grants in the past, I think, had a very similar outcome, and so I'm glad to hear that it wasn't that you were not Chamorro, because that would really be bad. But it is. I
didn't perceive that.
Okay, that's good to know. That's why I wanted to ask you that, because even today, Lee, people get grants and many of them don't fulfill the grants, which ruins it for others who come to apply. You know.
So I just want to also point out that I did not get any money for this. I donated in-kind services.
Well, I think that's a requirement for the humanities. There's always another part of the granting where you have to provide some in-kind. The point is that you documented a very important historical and artistic form of music for the Chamorro people. So thank you very much for that effort.
Well, you're quite welcome, and I enjoyed it.
I'm very appreciative of any kind of documentation from an ethnographic or oral history point, because I'm still amazed that I'm talking to you about this. Part of the problem in our historical past is that individuals like you who come, who live, who provide and participate in Guam's history eventually relocate and go back to your home places. And with you goes this incredible amount of information and historical perspective that wasn't captured. But you captured part of that by applying for this grant and doing the Belembaotuyan documentary. So I really think that that's important. And only by chance did my conversation with Mira extend into this. And this is why I'm always on the alert when I speak to people, because there's always something that we can capture. And telephone and technology today, allows us this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You said there were 3 parts of this grant. First was the meet and greet. Second was the construction. What's the third?
The playing. They both played the Belembaotuyans together.
And before whom and where?
It was between them and us.
Just for the documentation?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a public presentation?
No.
Okay.
Nope, it wasn't. It was after they built it, they said, let's play, and we said, let's shoot. So we got it.
What was the satisfying part of this grant for you, or this whole process?
Being able to meet these guys, because no one else had ever met them. I shouldn't say no one else had ever met them, but no, I don't know if anybody else said, hey, let's get this down. Let's get this down on some medium so that it's there. Mm-hmm. And they seem to enjoy it. And one of the things that really I felt really good about is that Mr. Quichocho invited us to his home. And
what did you do there?
The project team, we went there, and then they were talking about things, and I think we were shooting there, but we didn't shoot. It wasn't like we broke out the cameras. It was a visit. I thought it was better we just kind of low key it. But they were so gracious, and it was very, very rewarding for me, and also our project team. And I got to give it to them. I mean, if it wasn't for them, there's no way I would have been able to pull this off. And I was so proud of them.
You probably did more for the Belembaotuyan artists than you realized, because if I remember you saying earlier, they had never met each other either, correct?
Correct. They never met.
And yet they live on Guam.
Yeah.
So you brought 2 artisans together, unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that, but they said that they met for the first time. They said, and they told us that, and then they sat and talked for a while, and we're just sitting around and did a little bit of shooting when they were talking, and then they talked about like I said, they talked about their materials, and then they said. They were talking about, well, I use this wood, and Chrysostomos says, yeah, well, I like to use a bigger gourd, and they were really into it. So we got that part of it too.
So the hollow part of the Belembaotuyan is the difference. One used a particular wood to create a base where the sound would resonate, and the other one used a gourd?
Yeah, I forget what they called it. I think it was... They called it a box, but it was really kind of a dried squash.
Okay.
Cut in half.
That would be the gourd, yeah?
Yeah, that would be the gourd.
So one man used a plant-based shell, and the other one created a box.
No, not a box per se. I think he also had a gourd, but it was a little different.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Hmm
Okay.
So, and
Did it matter? Did it make a difference in the sound? Their choice of their box or their gourd?
I think it kind of did to me.
Okay.
But which is why we got it on the tape, because you can really hear the subtle differences. But it was quite nice. It was different. And then they were kind of singing too, which was nice.
What format or what medium did you record these in?
Well, back in the day, we recorded it on 3/4 inch tape, and we got it bumped up to at the time it was more of a 1-inch master. It was a beta.
Okay. I wonder if since we have transferred it and updated it, because technology has changed.
Yeah, I would think if it's still available in any kind of medium, my next project would be to try to let's get that onto digital.
Right.
And then
let's put it on YouTube.
And get it onto some tablets and get it onto internet access, for people to look at.
Well, that's why I said put it on YouTube and let them play. Let them be seen today.
I think I mentioned to you in the WhatsApp that I sent you that the PDN had a supplement called the Islander.
Mm-hmm.
And it was dated February 15th, 1981.
Okay.
And it's titled Belembaotuyan, Guam's Unique Instrument.
Yeah.
And in there, they mention our project.
Is the Belembaotuyan the only musical instrument that the Chamorro people had?
I would say I'm not an expert on that part of it, but I would think that may be possible.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I would also probably be surprised if it was other things.
I'm going to be interviewing some friends of mine who were born into a musically inclined family, and and followed the family's gift. And I am not familiar with any other instrument that was used. But we'll find out. That'll be part of the search, right?
Yeah, it's part of the research.
Right. So you'll need to stay tuned to the program, at least in regard to the podcast, and I'll definitely let you know if it's something that you might be interested in listening to. I mean, I'm still interested in hearing much more about what you're doing, but I appreciate the time that you spent here. It's 10:45 in the morning.
It's well worth it.
Do you miss Guam, Lee?
Yes, I do. We went back in 2004, and my wife's dad had passed away, so we went back for the funeral, and then of course we hooked up with Mira again, and so yeah, I want to go back again.
So,
I don't know when, but usually sometime.
Sure. Now, you didn't mention that when you came to Guam, you ended up marrying here.
I did. Well, actually, I got married when I was in California, going to school, art center.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you marry a local girl from Guam?
Yes, I did.
How did you meet?
When I was stationed at the communication station, and one of the people that were working there was two office workers, and the one girl who was working there, that was her cousin, and so that's kind of how we met. And then of course I had to go back to California, and then then my first wife then came back to California. We were married in San Diego, and then we parted ways. But that's how things go, and no regrets.
So is Mira the daughter of your first wife?
Yes.
And what is your first wife's name?
Her name is June.
Maiden name?
Maiden name was Bloss.
June Bloss. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have since remarried?
Yes.
Okay.
To another girl from Guam.
Oh, really? And what is her name?
Her name is Helen, and her maiden name was Preuss.
How do you spell that?
Helen Preuss. Preuc.
Preuc. Okay. So you like the Chamorro girls, huh?
Yes, I sure do.
Yeah, we have a running joke here. It's like a backdoor compliment to many. If you come to Guam single, you won't leave alone.
That's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But my wife now, she's half Filipina.
Yeah.
And her dad was he was born in Kansas, so he was Caucasian.
Uh-huh.
So she's a mix. So
it doesn't matter. When they're in Guam, they're beautiful chamorritas somehow.
They're all good looking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this interview.
Yeah, and if you want to follow up, just let me know. If you want to.
I most definitely will. I most definitely will let you know. I'm going to be seeing your daughter in about half an hour. So.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably going to grill you as to how I did.
Oh well, she'll just have to listen to the show, won't she?
Yes, I guess that's true.
Thank you very much for your time. Give your wife a half-a-day from everybody here, and hopefully one day we will see each other face to face, Lee.
Maybe so. I think that's possible.
Yeah. So appreciate it.
Again, I want to thank you too for your interest, and I do appreciate it.
Well, like you said earlier, only nosy people gain because they're the ones that make the effort to learn about other people.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and I'm going to get going here.
All right. Have a nice day.
You too. Enjoy your evening. Okay. Adios.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Rlene Live on the KUAM Podcast Network. Join her every Monday for a new edition. Log on soundcloud.com/KUAM News or listen anytime. Scroll down and click on Rlene. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Email Rlene, RLENE, @rlenelive.com. Thanks for listening.